Hi everybody, my name is Mike Sletten. This is my dad, Rolf Sletten.
Hi Mike.
Hey Dad, how you doing?
Great, good.
So this is the video interview we're doing for first week's discussion for international management. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are and what you do and who you work for.
Sure, you bet. Yeah, my name is Rolf Sletten. I'm the Associate Director of Corporate Security for Ford Motor Company. And we have global responsibilities for corporate security policies and enforcement. And we have been in the process, in the last 7 years or so, of globalizing all of our security operations and standardizing our security operations around the globe.
So Ford Motor Company is obviously a multinational corporation, and you're dealing with a lot of different countries, like China, Japan, the EU, Africa. But what are you spending a lot of your time with?
Well, right now we're spending a lot of time with the EU in particular for a couple different reasons. One is our department was the first department within Ford that developed a framework of competencies, which will be loaded up into our Career Navigator system, a new system we have for managing our HR processes from following an employee through their entire career.
So how does this relate from a global perspective?
Well, when we developed the competencies, as an example, we've started to get feedback now from the EU, from our European Union operations. And as an example, in the EU, we can't say things, or they can't say things like you have to have 2 years experience in this or 4 years experience in that. It has to be more objective and more descriptive of what kind of experience level you're requiring for something, and especially within a competency framework. So right now we've gotten that feedback from the EU, and we're working through that to figure out how we're going to more objectively break down our experience requirements, because we do state that in several instances throughout our competency.
So give us an example. Like, what's an example of a competency where the EU requires something different?
Well, as an example, we say that you must have 5 years, minimum of 5 years law enforcement experience to be in our department. And in the EU, you can't say that. So you'd have to say something like that you have, you've been through 5 budget cycles, or you've been through a minimum of 6 training sessions, or something like that. But it has to be much more descriptive and objective than just saying 5 years law enforcement.
Less general, more give us point by point by point.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. And so that's one thing that we've dealt with. The other thing that we're doing is, I'm responsible for, is we're globalizing our card access system, and we have started implementing a standard ID card, and it's all connected globally, so that we can manage all of this, the complexity, because we have people traveling all over the world all the time. So this way it allows us to enable access into our facilities. But the main point is that in the EU, as an example, we've worked for several years with them, especially with respect to privacy laws that we don't experience anywhere else in the world. The EU is very unique in that respect, and protecting workers.
It's more stringent, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, they're much more stringent than anywhere else
in the
world.
So can you give us an example of
a
country or stringencies?
I can do that. The EU in general says that that we cannot share certain types of data outside the EU. So we had to sign a data privacy agreement with the European Union, which was a big effort for us, because we had to have our Office of General Counsel, we had to have lots of experts weigh in on this, how we were going to do that.
Interesting.
And to protect the data, because some of the data we had to ship outside the EU in order for the functionality of the system. The other thing is one of their big privacy concerns is that they feel that the information contained in our database just for card access would allow people to to have direct marketing sent to their house. Which we think is a very trivial issue, but is a big issue for them, and we have to respect that.
Right.
The other thing that's quite interesting for us is that, especially in Germany, they feel that with the Patriot Act that the U.S. government can take over our card access system and in effect use our card access system to track Ford of Germany employees within the plants, their comings and goings and things, which is, again, kind of a unique perspective from their standpoint. But again, we have to respect that, and we had to build in a lot of protections.
Are there special agreements with certain countries like Germany?
Yeah, there are. There are special agreements, but there's also special data protections and firewalls that we had to put in place that would assuage their concerns about preventing this control coming over to Department of Homeland Security, as an example.
Interesting.
So we've done that, and I think we've made a lot of progress. As an example, this year alone, we brought in 14 facilities overseas into our system, and we have about 34 more projects internationally moving forward in this area. So
that's interesting. Now, when we're talking about globalization and taking this kind of an effort to centralize the data, how much effort does that really take from internally?
A lot. Huge.
From a lot of different departments.
A lot of different departments, because we have to involve our IT department, and within IT, as people may appreciate, there's lots of subsets of IT, because there's the network people, there's the data storage people, there's the applications people, and those kinds of folks, and so there's a lot of different interfaces there that we have. But we also have our Office of General Counsel has to be involved, the lawyers, and we have specialists that deal in privacy laws and things like that. So we have to deal with lots of team. It's a big team effort. The fact is, on the EU data privacy, it took us 6 years to implement the data privacy agreement with the EU, and it wasn't just a matter of sitting down at a table, because they deal with big committees, and so they have, you have to kind of get into their system and their flow, their processes and things in order to get.
So it's not a short pace. It's not something we would expect at
of course,
an American way of doing business. It's an integrated way of their way.
But it's their processes, and because you have so many different national interests, you have the Germans, you have the French, you have all these different nationalities with different issues and different concerns. You kind of have to consider all of them and then blend them together and then address all of them, so that eventually you can reach that agreement. And it takes a while.
That's interesting. So what would you say the benefit of globalizing is for Ford Motor Company? Would you say there's keen benefits?
Well, for us, as globalizing, getting way beyond security, but in our products side and the automobile side, by globalizing, we've gone from 93 platforms about 7 to 10 years ago, that we're down to manufacturing on 15 platforms now globally, and we can, with our flexible manufacturing processes, we can now share tools, we can share tool and die, we can share parts. There's a commonality of about 65% of the parts between the different platforms, which is a huge cost savings to us. But when you standardize like that, then it allows for better process control, better continuity, and so on and so forth.
Which means that you, as a manufacturing company of motor vehicles, you can, having these integrated platforms, mean that you can switch from making one particular model to the next very easily.
Absolutely.
And from country to country.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the other advantage to globalization for us is that we're going to be down to 9 platforms in another 2 years.
Interesting.
And so it's a big advantage to us. Our flexible manufacturing, which has nothing to do with globalization, is that on the same production line, depending on the production line, you can have up to 5 different models being produced simultaneously.
Interesting.
You can have coming coming right down the line, one right after the other. So
different.
It's a huge advantage to us
Well,
for manufacturing.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
well, I don't want to overrun the time, but I want to thank Dad very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
For spending and sharing your time and information with us. And I wanted to thank all the viewers for taking a look at our video. And, thank you very much again. And thank you.
Good.
Very interesting stuff.
Welcome. Okay, very good.
Okay.